Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by SMS. In today's webinar, we're joined by Martin, a member of the SMS team, who will be talking to you a little bit today about a really interesting topic of web hosting. I'm really looking forward to that. But before we get into it, any live viewers, at the end of the webinar, we will be sending out an information pack. This includes a little bit of a guide to web hosting, a copy of today's webinar, which we'll see in a moment, and all the links to information about how we offer web hosting. So without further ado, I will hand you over to the very capable hands of Martin. Martin, over to you.
Thanks very much, Josh. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's well today. So we're going to be discussing the ultimate guide to secure web hosting today. This is just a brief overview of our web hosting platform that we offer here at SMS, and it will just cover some features of that service. So the agenda for today is we're going to give you an introduction on web hosting, what that is, what domain names are. We'll slowly move on to Linux versus Windows, what the differences are. We'll discuss some web hosting terms, and then the final two sections will cover the SiteJet Builder, what that is, and a brief overview of WordPress and what you can do in that, including some features. So what is web hosting? So web hosting is effectively a service in the cloud. It's a server that will run websites because it has specific software on it that will allow you to run your websites. So think it is an online service that allows you to publish your company website or personal projects on the internet that anyone can access via an internet browser. The beauty of web hosting is you can store pretty much most things on it, such as media files, applications that you build, obviously web pages themselves that contain web code. And because it's continuously connected to the internet, it can be accessed pretty much anywhere in the world. As long as there's an active internet connection, it will simply just work. Ultimately, a cloud in the server, online service that will allow you to serve your website for your business, basically. And it gives you that online presence. So domain names, what are domain names? So the easiest way to describe what domain name is it's a unique user-friendly address that will allow you to access your website. And it basically, technical side of things, it's a text-based name that will that effectively you put in, say, abc.com, and it will convert that into what's known as an IP address. And then it will know what web server to go where your website is basically hosted from. So domain names can come in all sorts of variations. There is thousands of domain extensions, which is the .com part at the end, or .net, .co.uk, and there is even more now because the ICANN, who are responsible for the domain names, have opened it up for thousands of other domain names, such as things like .jobs and .construction and things like that. There's a whole realm of them, and they all have different prices and things like that. But to start with, once you buy your web hosting, you would need a domain name, because you need a domain name in order to obviously have a website. And then obviously the best way to do it is to pick a name that's unique to you, and it's something that's going to be easy for people to tap in when they go to your website. We do see people having web addresses which are very, very long, and the problem with that is that you're open to having people spelling things incorrectly, and you want something that's going to be catchy and something which is going to be memorable. Otherwise, you're not going to get many people going to your website. And I've seen over the years people having long domain names, and they've had to abbreviate it over the years because it's too long. Now, once you have a domain name, you will have the DNS will effectively come with that domain name with us. And we will obviously then point that to your web hosting with us. So you don't need to worry about adding any sort of DNS records or anything like that. We take care of that for you when the domain name is registered. So then that'll make that just effectively work. So then you can literally sign into your web hosting and start creating your site. So what is Plesk? Now, before I talk about Plesk, basically with web hosting, you have usually a control panel, and there are many providers out there that use what's known as proprietary control panels, and they are basically control panels they have had specifically built for them, so they can interface with their web hosting services that will allow them to do things like upload files, create databases, set up security, things like that, and they specifically use that. But when it comes to wanting an all-in-one solution that will do it for you, and to make it a lot more seamless and easy to use, you then have like third-party control panels, such as Plesk and cPanel. They are the main two control panels. There are many others, but they are the main two that are in the public domain that you will see available. cPanel is a very good control panel, but it is one of these control panels that is quite difficult to use, which is the reason why here at SMS we opted to use Plesk, because Plesk is very much intuitive, and it is like a Windows-based control panel. So within Plesk itself, it allows you to manage your site. So you can do things like create databases, add domain names, set up security. You can do things like see what scripting languages you want to turn on. You can look at web stats, add web users. It's a very, very powerful service. And typically, Plesk can be installed on, and this is more of a technical thing, on virtual private servers, dedicated servers, shared servers. We operate a shared platform here where we run Plesk on a shared environment that's spread out across our customer base. Everyone gets their own unique login and their own section of that. So it's not like you're going to see anyone else's data. It's just yours only. It's your own area basically. And Plesk is very good for web professionals because it's just so easy to use. And it comes in two variations. You've got Windows and Linux, and we're going to discuss that shortly. So Linux versus Windows, what are the differences? So there's a few differences, and people might want to know, well, why would you have one or the other? So typically, with Linux, the web service software that you'd be running would be Apache or Nginx, or both. With Windows, you'd have IIS, so Linux being the operating system, Windows being the operating system. You then need a web system in place to actually serve your website. So Linux would be using Apache, Windows will be using IIS. And then you move on to what languages it will work with. Now, Linux will work with many scripting languages. These are just a few: HTML, PHP, CSS. It run Perl. It'll run, which is an older language, Python, etc. Whereas with Windows, they are specifically built to run all them as well, but they allow you to run things like the .NET framework, or ASP, which is a Microsoft-specific web language. So if your website's been built by a developer in .NET framework, then you would have to choose the Windows option where it would run from. And that goes for the same for databases. So databases within web hosting comes in many variations. Here we run the MariaDB system, which is basically a MySQL database, which is roughly what Linux uses. You also get the same on Windows, but Windows also gives the added benefit of having MS SQL, which is Microsoft's own SQL server, so their own SQL database, which you have access to via the Plesk panel. They both feature Let's Encrypt and two-factor authentication. We're going to discuss this later on, but the Let's Encrypt is the certificate that serves the website to keep it secure, and the two-factor side is when you sign in for that additional security. And they both run SiteJet Builder and WordPress. However, I will point out at this stage, if you're specifically going to have a WordPress site, opt for Linux, because with Windows, WordPress will run, but there's a lot of plugins that are not compatible with Windows, and you will have compatibility and performance issues running it on Windows. So think of it like this: the majority of people will be using Linux because it's the performance on it's incredible, the reliability is incredible, it's secure. Windows is secure as well, and it is reliable, but it sometimes can have a few performance is not always the best over Linux. But if you're building a website specifically with the Microsoft coding languages, then you would have to use the Windows platform, and it would work perfectly fine. It is secure. It would be work perfectly normally. But the majority of people are going to be using Linux because it's the number one choice for web servers basically. So we're going to now discuss some key sections from that earlier chart. So what sort of web service software is running? So on Linux, it's the Apache, which is a widely used open source web service that's available. And here's a statistic for you: it's 47% of all websites use Apache. That's why it's one of the main web services, sorry, which basically people use. For Nginx, this is more for the performance and the reliability side of serving your website. So this keeps the website running at top performance, and obviously keeps it reliable to serve that web content that you have. On the Windows side, you'll be running Internet Information Services, IIS, and that just serves the same way that Apache would, but it will allow you to run the things like the .NET Framework applications. Now on to web languages. Now, most people that will have a website will probably be using some sort of site builder or WordPress, where they won't need to know what these are or ever touch them. But if you're the kind of person that's going to be building a website from scratch using a web development software, then you will need to know what web languages are. So web languages are basically fundamentally the code behind the page. So all web pages you go onto, google.com, facebook.com, or etc., will have web code behind them, which you can view. And this is the code that builds the website up to make it look the way it does and interact with it and things like that. Now, there's many different types of web languages or development languages available. These are just a few. So PHP, HTML, Python, JavaScript, CSS, and ASP.NET. Among them all, though, the top ones that pretty much most websites use is HTML and PHP. They are widely utilized in web development because of the ease of use of building websites that way. I need to just point out again, it's important to note that the ASP stuff is only compatible in the Windows environments, but you can also run PHP, HTML on them as well. So that'll basically just make them, that's what they're compatible for, basically. In regards to databases, sometimes you might want to utilize a database to store information. So a database is effectively a table with rows and columns. It's stored within the cloud that you can have full access to using MySQL login. And basically, this will allow you to store information. So the best scenario of a database is that you have an inventory system that has stock on your website. You can, if your web developer has built a website that allows you to input data from on a web page, it would then store that in a database, and then the database would be readable from your website, and it would interact with it, so you can effectively see line items that you'll be selling product or whatever. And also, if you want to write back to it, then you can do. It'll allow you to write back to the database, and it is a good way of storing information for specific websites that you've got. One of the main services that uses databases is WordPress. WordPress is a complete database-driven application, and it creates many tables within it to make it function the way the way the whole site works. So databases are very useful for certain applications and in principle. In regards to databases types, obviously MySQL would be for Linux, as again, MS SQL is for Windows. They're very similar. It's just that obviously the Microsoft one is specifically a Microsoft built SQL service, basically. Now, security is one of the most important things with websites, and especially that I think majority of browsers these days require to have one, especially things like Google for the ranking side. So you would need an SSL certificate. Now with Plesk, it comes with a free SSL certificate provided by Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt was created several years ago by a group of companies to provide free SSL certificates for websites. Now they can be used on various different types of websites, whether it's a company website, a personal project. You can use them on blogs. You can use them on e-commerce to a degree. However, I would point out that if you've got an e-commerce website with value, then I would recommend looking at buying a certificate through a certificate authority, which you can add to Plesk and serve it from there. This is purely for the fact that when you buy a certificate, most certificates come with an insurance policy in the event that there's a security incident. You can claim back basically money on the actual the cover that it gives you, whereas with Let's Encrypt provides no insurance on it whatsoever. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad certificate. It just means that it doesn't protect you. It doesn't have any insurance as such on it. Let's Encrypt is probably one of the #1 certificates that people use these days. It's highly recommended. It is a case of going into Plesk, turning it on, adding a record to your domain name, a DNS record. Once your domain's verified, it literally enables, and that's your website secure. I'd highly recommend everybody using these. I use them myself, and I've never really had any issues with them. They do support wildcards, so if you've got abc.com, but say you have a blog, you can actually, the certificate will cover blog.abc.com. So it is very good for things like that. If you need to know any further information about SSL certificates in general, then you can reach out to us and we can give you the information on that. In regards to two-factor authentication, this is mainly to give you an additional layer of security when signing into Plesk, so we can enable two-factor authentication when signing, and then you can set it up using your chosen authenticator app. And this just gives you extra security when signing to Plesk to prevent unauthorized access to your site. The last thing you'd want is something to happen and someone to delete everything. So this gives you the peace of mind with the additional security to protect any unauthorized access to that. So we're just going to discuss SiteJet Builder, because I know we've covered quite a bit so far. But SiteJet Builder I highly recommend SiteJet Builder, and this is because it is a very, very easy website creation tool. You can literally have a website up and running within 10 minutes. It's that quick. When you go into SiteJet Builder, you effectively choose a subject. You then choose from over 140 templates available how you want your website to look, and then it will look similar to what's on screen at the moment. And it is basically a drag and drop tool that allows you to drag and drop content onto your page. So you can add text titles, you can add text contents, you can add media, so photos, video, audio. You can add a various of things like contact forms, social media links. The list goes on. There's that much that you can do with it. And the beauty of it is that it will look professional when it's finished. And it will render to screen sizes. So not one of these days where we build a website and it wouldn't work in a mobile phone browser. Now it will, because SiteJet Builder takes care of that rendering for you without any issues. It has AI tools built in, which obviously taking off nowadays. A lot more people using AI-powered text generators or AI tools. It's SEO compliant, so it'll work fine with your search engine optimization and rankings and things like that. And it is a very, very, very good tool. I'd highly recommend it for anyone that's a novice or beginner into web development or website creation, basically. Like I say, there's no coding skills required because it does it all for you. So it is a very, very good service. These are some of the key features of it. So like I mentioned, there's over 140 designers made themes on there. It features a responsive user interface. It has the AI tools. It's SEO friendly. It's multilingual, so you can support multiple languages if your website is if you have business in other countries that don't have English as their first language. And it is fully integrated into Plesk. It also gives you free stock photos and videos, which are very, very useful because the last thing you want to do is steal someone's image from the internet that's copyrighted and face a major issue with that. So it does actually have a free stock and photo and video section which you can use in there to your heart's content. It's a very, very good service. And like I say, anyone that needs information on the SiteJet Builder, please reach out to us. We're going to finish on WordPress. So WordPress in itself is a broad topic. and we may need to do a future webinar just on WordPress. If anyone was interested in that, then please reach out to us and we can add that to the list to make it a feature of another webinar in the future. But to summarize, WordPress is a free content management system that allows you to create a various type of website. It powers over 43% of all websites currently on the internet, and it was designed and developed several years ago. Effectively, originally, it was built as a blogging engine, and it was designed to build a blog site. But as the years have gone on, they've made it more simple to use, and they've developed it into this service now where it's not just about blogs, it's about websites, it's about e-commerce sites. You can create pretty much anything in it. And as again, you don't need to have any coding skills. What I would say is though, WordPress does take some time to get to you to understand how it works. So I would say it's more for the sort of like the advanced beginner to advanced user. That's not saying that novices can't use it, because they can, but it will just take a bit longer to learn how it works and where things are, because it's not as simple as Sitejet Builder. There is a bit more to it. The beauty of WordPress is that it has an extensive library of themes, and I'm talking thousands, and you can literally create any theme you want on it that you want how you want your website to look. You choose the theme that you want to make your website look how you want it to be displayed. And there are many free ones, and there's also paid ones as well. But you also get what's known as plugins. And plugins are basically a piece of code is the best way to describe it, that will do certain things. So for example, there are plugins for contact forms, there's plugins for security, there's plugins for e-commerce, there's plugins for uh, if you have a comment section on your web page, there is a plugin that will allow things like blocking spam messages. There's plugins that will talk to databases. There's that many of different ones that are available, that people use. A lot of people use the SEO ones for things. There's even some official ones out there from official people that allow you to integrate with certain third-party systems. They are updatable you can update them as well as themes via WordPress and WordPress itself. But with Plesk, you have the beauty of WordPress Toolkit, which allows you to keep an eye on updating WordPress, updating plugins, updating themes. It will also do a vulnerability scan, and it'll tell you if any plugins are vulnerable and if there's a way to resolve them, as in updating them, contacting the vendor from them, or if they're simply not updatable and they recommend you to disable them and look for an alternative one. So you can do that from within Plesk itself. And when WordPress gets installed, when you first log in, it typically goes to the WordPress toolkit when you first sign in. So it's quite useful. But WordPress is, like I say, is a very, very powerful tool, and you can do a lot with it. You can also add multiple users to it. So if you want to have, multiple users on there, say for your marketing team, for your IT team, your staff, you can do that. You can also create customer logins on it. There's actually plugins that will actually create a specific user login section for it, although you can do it natively in WordPress, but there's ones where you can restrict it a bit further on what they can see. So it is a very, very powerful tool to use, and that's why a lot of people use it. So these are some of the features of WordPress. Like I say, it's simplicity, it's flexible, it's easy to use, publishing tool. The user management section, it's got a media management section, so you can upload your photos, your images, your videos, or any audio files. You can obviously upload documents to it as well. It's the theme and plugin system on it is incredible. Installation and upgrades are dead straightforward as well via Plesk. It's search engine optimized, and it's just a very, very, very good system to use, and it is multilingual supported. So that finishes the webinar for today. I'm going to pass you over to Josh, but just before I do that, I just want to thank everyone for watching, and I hope everyone's doing okay. Over to you, Josh.
Fantastic. Some really great information there, Martin. Definitely would be interested myself in seeing a solo WordPress webinar in the future. Thanks again for Martin today for doing that, and thank you for everyone for watching. If you are watching a little bit later on our YouTube channel, feel free to put any questions that you may have in the comment section below. We'll make sure to get them answered as soon as possible. And of course, check any links we've got in the description for all of our stuff. And then we'll hope to see you on the next webinar. Thank you very much.